Hello guys, today we have an episode about G63 6.3, which we turn into 4x4 in square. You may remember that in the last episode we lacked an adapter, but a few days later the final drive manufacturer sent them to us, and we received them. Today we are starting to cut off the front CV joints and replace them with those sent to us by the manufacturer. You may ask, why cut when you can just take them off? I will answer you that even the instructions say that it needs to be cut off, since there is no snap rings, and the original part comes with the half and axle, so there is no point in keeping it. So the assembly process began. We installed the bolts on the silent. This is how the manufacturer of the final drives recommended to us. And we had a few problems, maybe serious ones, but I will talk about that later. On the recommendation of our manufacturer, we filled in oil 75W90. Now we are setting the level of oil and getting ready for the test. We temporarily put the expanders for the final drives in the wrong places. It will fall into place when we install the full suspension with arches for 4x4 in square, like the original. Well guys, our G-Wagon is already on wheels. The final drives are installed, the oil is filled in, everything is checked, the wheels are screwed on. Let's go! In general, we left, drove one lap, so far it's hard to say if something has changed. The only thing that in console gives errors about the brake pads, and the ABS and everything else works fine. It also seemed to me that the general plugin began to start sharper thanks to the final drives. And he also stopped leaning to his side. But I could be wrong, since I don't drive such cars every day, especially since there is a powerful stabilizer in front. Or is it because the wheel is sticking out? Let's test it again. Guys, I realized that there is no point in riding here, so we're going to the city to hear if there is noise from the gearboxes. Let's go. So, there was the first test of our 6.3 giant wagon, but now it's already 4x4 in square. I had good news and bad. When I got on the road, accelerated to a speed of 80 to 100 km per hour, I did not hear any noise at all. And we can say that the final drives are silent. There may be some small noise, but you need to listen very carefully. On this giant wagon there are road tires, and the noise from them is almost inaudible. But on our 6x6 there are tires specially for off-road, and it creates a very strong noise. The complete soundproofing of the cabin does not even save. At 4x4 in square I deliberately accelerated, and did not accelerate further to hear the noise of rubber, and it turned out that it was quite quiet and almost nothing was heard in it. The steering part is comfortable, but please be skeptical that as I drove a maximum of 4 km on this car and I can directly explain the whole situation. It would be interesting for me to ride it along the road squeezed by trucks. Whoever lives in Ukraine will understand, and I'm wondering if the car will twitch, but I haven't found that yet. But in general, everything is fine, nothing much has changed. The ride comfort and smoothness of the ride have not changed dramatically, perhaps a little tougher. This can be explained by the fact that 100 kilograms of the weights have been added due to the gearboxes under the spring mass. If about bad, I can say that when we rode here everything was fine, and after leaving on the road the gearbox went into emergency mode and the speedometer stopped working. Most likely the ABS sensor was missing somewhere. We were given an adapter to this thing. In the kit there is a gear that is very close to the sensor, and the adapter itself is a step for the sensor. It seems to me that it will be necessary to make change, but first I will call my friends who do this to ask about it. Personally, I hope that this problem can be easily solved. This was the biggest problem. I think we can handle it. Another problem is the error associated with brake pads. Maybe it's related to the rear calipers, although I haven't checked the handbrake yet. Now I will go to the hangar and we'll check everything. I think this can be dealt with simply by shorting the wires or something else. And if you look under the bottom of the car, you can immediately understand that it is not suitable for off-road, since the final drives do not hide in wheel. If, for example, we take the axles from the Laplander, you can see them in action in the photo. And you can also see the Nissan Patrol on Laplanders in action. And the principle is that here it hides in the wheel. Those final drives have amplifiers, all sorts of levers stick out, and consider that these final drives are anchor for off-road. But I understand that this car will not be used in off-road, but I told you about it. Moreover, the gearbox itself hangs in the air and does not hide in the side. Even if you put a clearer, it will still not be clean, and everything will be exactly something hanging somewhere and reducing your clearance. If about speedometer, I could not detect, also I argued that the speed should increase. By the way, perhaps the ABS is not the cause of the emergency mode in the gearbox, but the small wheels can be, since transmitter number has changed due to the small wheels, and the gearbox has fallen into emergency mode. If we put the 47th wheels, there will be no problems. This is solvable. I don't think it's very big problem in this project. And I also want to tell you about the problem that we encountered when we installed final drives. And the manufacturer did not tell us everything about this. I will tell you right away that you need to check the kits and the length of the bolts. There are faceplates and adapters, and it's all bolted to the axle, and the final drive is screwed to them. And people complain that it always flows there. I took the assembly and began to study the problem. Began to disassemble and so on. Everything seems to be fine, and I realized that the problem was when we started bolting the gearbox and faceplate.
А потом чисто случайно берем, прикручиваем к бортовому редуктору длинным болтом вот эту вот планшайбу.
Here are the adapters through which everything is attached to the axle.
Вот видите, вот сюда вот. Значит, что мы имеем? Эти адаптеры, они два плотненько соединяются и вечно жалуются, что
What is the problem? Those adapters are connected through a bolt, and you can see that the bolt sticks out 0.5 millimeters.
Допустим, что этот адаптер уже с этим скрученный, мы затягиваем уже полностью на чистовую. И что мы имеем? Вот видите, вот
All bolts are the same length, so be careful.
Вот мы берем штангель, приставляем, видите, скажете, да нет, ты, наверное, перепутал болты. Вот все болты для бортового длины. У них полностью одинаковая длина. Вот так вот, ребята, надо быть очень внимательным.
And in the end, it turned out that the bolt is longer than necessary, and the second half is screwed to the breech. You don't see this process, and because of these bolts, a hole is obtained between the adapters. I think that the manufacturer should have said that you need to check the package. I had no idea that such a company could have such problems. It's good that we saw it in the time, trimmed everything, checked it, everything is fine.
Конечно, это должен производитель все контролировать. Хорошо, что мы это все вовремя увидели, все болты проверили, протянули, проверили еще раз. Все четко. Ну и следующий этап.
And the next stage is the suspension. This is a double shock absorber and a double spring. I already showed you everything is like the original. We even compared the shock absorbers. We got the opportunity to compare the original and ours. And in principle everything is the same. There are no instructions, but I think that we can handle it. We'll weld everything, prime it, paint it, and everything will be fine. And next step, we will disassemble the Giant Wagon for painting, because the owner wants to remove all the chrome and replace it with carbon. Molding, seals, mufflets, wheels will be primed and painted in matte black. Brabus snorkels will also be installed, which have already arrived. Who will need contact with us? We have a lot of tasty things for G-Wagon. Then it will be hot.
Кстати, кому нужно будет, то тоже обращайтесь. Ну, в общем, по гелику у нас много вкусного уже есть. Потом подножки приехали под низ. Скоро, короче, красавчик будет.
Now I want to check you the handbrake. I told you earlier that the manufacturer equipped the rear boxes with their own sports, to which the handbrake is connected and the pistols are clamped. Turn on drive, and the car started moving. The car stopped. Let's step on the gas a little bit. It moves, but the handbrake is working, but not the way we want it. We will try to adjust it.
Здесь не так. Возможно, он регулируется. Мы этот вопрос изучим, но смысл в том, что ручник рабочий.
And guys, I did not tell you about one problem. The rear axle is 7 cm wider than the front. When I installed the wheels, I noticed it. They didn't tell us about it, and it's good that we had 35mm spacers. We installed them and everything became smooth, but the manufacturer really should have mentioned it. Our Genwagen is already on the operating table and getting ready for rework. We will install the suspension here as in 4x4. I will test it and point out the pros and cons of this suspension.
Это небольшая проблема, она решилась. Но плечо обката уже нарушено. Значит, наш гелик...
I also waited for the moment of installing this rubber to make sure that there was no noise from the final drives. The first time I was personally surprised as everything was quiet. If of course you drove 100 km, you will probably hear something. But of course I drove less and I can't say for sure.
Я, конечно, был приятно удивлен, но действительно очень тихо, очень хорошо. Ну, конечно, если поездить там 1000 километров, да, ты более вслушаешься в машину, конечно, может быть, что-то ты там услышишь. Ну, за 5 километров, в принципе, мне более-менее все.
So guys, this video ends now. Bye everyone, and don't forget to press like.